The Central Bank of Nigeria has revised its cash withdrawal rules, discontinuing the previous authorization, now permitting individuals to withdraw 5 million naira, while corporate accounts do up to 10 million naira once a month, effective January 2026. Now, the new policy is designed to reduce the cost of cash management, strengthen security, and curb money laundering risks associated with the economy's heavy reliance on physical currency. The move is also part of the CBN's effort to combat inflation, reduce the size of the informal economy, and increase the adaptation of digital payment system. Nigeria Today will be exploring what the policy is all about, the implication of the policy, what it means to individuals, and its impact on the economy. So, a warm welcome to the program. I am Mina Daniels. And with me in the studio is Chris Kaka, an economist and policy analyst. It's a pleasure to have you join us on the program, Chris.
Thank you for inviting me.
And also right here is Farouk Abdullahi. He is a financial analyst and chairman of Ultimate Spectrum. It's a pleasure having you here.
It's always my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, you guys are field men in this business. So how will the new cash policy withdrawal limit affect small businesses and traders who depend heavily on, cash transactions? Let me start with you, Farouk.
Thank you. You see, at the heart of financial transactions lies the ability for an economy, to have to reach some level of financial penetration. And it is expected that not only, underperforming economies, but economies like ours perform exceedingly well in terms of having this kind of financial inclusion. And for businesses, for traders, for individuals, and, for overwhelming Nigerians, I think this cash policy, it's a good one because limiting their access to cash impact them negatively. There is no limit or barrier as to the amount of transaction that businesses can be able to execute utilizing digital payment platforms. But if they decide to go and get this cash from banks, it would kind of make them incur additional expenses, because that also is a burden to the banking system. It's a burden to the central bank. It's a burden to commercial banks. And that is why the monetary authorities, in their wisdom, stipulated a threshold at which individuals can be able to access this cash. I think it's pegged at...
Come to you, Kaka. As an economist, how did you receive this news and what does it mean to you? What's your notion about it?
Okay, thank you very much once again. First is to say that there's a global trend of moving economies towards a cashless system. When Nigeria started it in 2012 thereabout, I think I said then what we had was not a cashless system. What we had was a cash-light system. I think it's important to contextualize what we mean by the cashless system. A cashless system is essentially a system where the central bank itself ceases to produce money. And so the money you see in circulation are private monies, because the central bank ceases producing notes and coins and the rest of them. Having explained that is to also understand that there is nowhere in the world where currency is not actually used. What is really going on, there's a limit to cash transaction to which you can do it. And he that is also bringing in needs to explain how he got it in the first instance, because there is a ceiling on the amount of cash. Now, the policy that has happened here now of 100,000 naira per day for many on the platform and 500,000, like my colleague said, for the week, for individuals and the one, I think for me again, it still does not meet up with the fact that we're trying to move towards a cashless system. Point be made, Nigeria was transiting towards a cashless system even without the central bank instruction. And I'll give you two examples. There was a time we were using the pack and pay thing in the city here. It's a prepaid card, people use it. Up till now, people used to do the preloaded cards to buy top-up cards to buy fuel at filling stations. So the point is, whether you put the policy or not, there is a global financial trend that economies will transit into a cashless economy without being forced. It's like having a color TV at home. There's no government policy that says you should have a color TV at home, but you know, the trends and the style, things begin to evolve and you want to find the needs. The picture quality is better, the audio sounds is better, you begin to find yourself moving towards. So what the central bank has done is also how to help us catalyze moving towards a particular direction. But at the moment, I feel it will defeat the purpose, because if I have an ulterior motive, for instance, the argument is they want to use it to fight money laundering and terrorism financing, as it were. The moment you put a caveat and say, look, if I exceed the particular ceiling you have, I have to pay an extra charge. So as an individual, if I withdraw 100,000 naira over and above my informal sector drives every economy in the world, because that is where the real people who do the real work actually comes. They provide the services for the big ones. And one thing about them is that they are more cash-based in their businesses, what they do. And so when you then put this policy and say everybody must find a way, we will always find a way around the issues. The negative side is to think, oh, this thing is going to affect the way we do business for an individual. But for a person in the informal sector, the average income he makes cannot be any more than 50,000 naira per week. So what does he want to do with the excess cash in the first place? I don't see it affecting us. What I think this will actually help us do, it will help in the implementation of the new tax law, which is to take effect.
You know, to manage cash-based transaction, the cost of moving cash, CIT, is huge. You know, it eats up a chunk of the profits that is being made by banks, and at the same time, it's a burden on the central bank. You know, so the whole idea is that if you need extra cash, you pay more for it. For individual, you pay 3%, and I think that will take care of the logistics on the side of the monetary, you know, authority, and on the side of also the banks. So for the banks, it is business as usual, you know, but for individuals, it's not business as usual, meaning that you need to, you know, weigh your options and see what works well for you in terms of whether it is more viable to pay more to get cash or just to use the system, you know, the digital platform to execute your transactions. So the impact, I feel, is still positive for banks, and it would increase liquidity in the financial system, you know, because once people brings in money into the banking system, it gives the banks leverage, you know, to give back this money, you know, to the economy. You know, we have small businesses that need loans, you know, and grants and all of that. So without having money in the system, how would they be able to do that adequately? It would mean that there will be enough money in circulation, enough money in the corpus of bank that is there to be put out, you know, to the economy, agriculture, you know, farmers, you know, small and medium skills enterprise. They will have more access to financing, to funding.
All right, let's just take a little breather now. When we return, we'll be looking at how the CBN will ensure checks and balances in both ways. We'll be right back with more. Stay with us.
The implementation of the ruling is also dependent on another aspect or another arm of government.
Nowhere in the world will allow, under digital economy, for banks not to be dispensing domestic currency in that economy.
What will make this one different?
We want to know what they do as occupation. All of these are attributes that our questions have been designed to investigate.
In a few days to come, you see that we are all around their own crannies and everywhere in Nigeria, telling people to cooperate.
Welcome to Nigeria Today.
Thank you so much for joining us again. The new CBN cash policy is our topic of discussion, and I still have Chris Kaka and Farouk Abdullahi right here with me. So before we went on that break, I told the gentleman that when we return, we'll be discussing how the bank will be ensuring checks and balances on both the bank itself and the other, you know, people. So let me start with Chris. How can the CBN ensure that banks comply with this new policy, and what measures do you think will be taken against the faulters?
Okay, thank you. I think the central bank, in its wisdom, while rolling out this policy, had a caveat in the document, and it actually said that, look, the charges, the extra charges you impose on individuals and the corporate organization for exceeding the monthly and weekly daily limits that the central bank has fixed must be a separate account. If you read through the document, central bank gives instructions specifically that you must keep a separate account of the extra charges you owe, and don't mix it up with other kind of financial transactions. So for you, it's important for the central bank to do that, so it's able to trace it, while it's able to reconcile accounts as part of a supervisory oversight functions on the commercial bank. And that's the way I think it should actually go. In terms of sanction, I think it's important to say that, look, what the central bank has done as far as the policy is on the surface, it doesn't say you can't go and exceed for a corporate organization, you can't exceed your 5 million naira. For an individual, you can't take more than the 500,000 naira per week you need to do. It's just saying if you must take beyond it, you have to pay an extra charge. Like the illustration I do for you, if I take 600,000, the extra 100,000 naira on it will be charged an extra 3% apart from the normal bank charges I have to pay. The VAT, the COT, and all that kind of management fees, I have to pay that extra 3%, which is about like 3,000 naira extra on that particular. So what the central bank has done, it has not said you can't exceed, and that's the worry I have for it, is that you've got to pay an extra for it. And like the point my colleague has actually made. So
who's bearing the burden? Like if a family has a problem one weekend that needs 3 million naira, and then they need to exceed this policy. Now, who is bearing the burden?
You as a person withdrawing the money have got to pay that 3%. The bank itself, if you were actually dealing with, the bank itself has also got its own charge to pay. You as an individual who is withdrawing the money, you were the one who initiated the transaction. You were the one who needed the extra. You just got to pay that particular amount. And that for me is worrisome. Because while it will help you to deal with the issues of reducing the amount of cash you carry around in circulation. By the way, it is important to clear it. Why people argue, I accept that banking penetration has not really gotten there. As we speak today right now, there are countries who have gone very far. I walk into a ShopRite, there's a QR code somewhere. Instead of doing a transfer, I may just scan the QR code and do transfers, and I'm out of the place rather than using my card because of network. But I tell you, country has gone as far as all I need to do is pinch my phone for the amount, and there's a microchip as tiny as a grain of seed, of rice seed. They've started it in countries like Sweden. I just wave my hands across the QR code where I have a thing. The debiting is done, and I'm out of the place. So people have really gone that far. You do not necessarily, I mean, if you need, like the illustration you drew, you need an extra cash beyond what the central bank says. Well, why do you really need the cash? You could very well use other platforms to actually make the transfers and transactions you need to do, and that's what government is trying to reduce. Like he pointed out, you need to go find out how much it costs the central bank to maintain cash. Beyond that, each time the deposit money banks need to go and pull cash from the central bank, there's a bullion van going with them. There are police escorts. These things are extra costs for the bank itself. So the cost of cash management itself is a huge problem, and that is part of the things this particular intervention policy of the government is trying to address. So there are so many dimensions why the policy is there.
Yeah, because individuals can just decide to, open multiple accounts in various banks, so that they withdraw from here, multiple sources to meet up and, avoid the extra charges we're talking about. But let me come to you, Farouk. Do you think Nigeria is ripe for this kind of a thing? Because I know, like, if you leave the shores of this country, for instance, you get to some airports, you need to pay for something, your foreign card, you just tap like this and it's gone. All those issue of you put an ATM, you can't see money, and all of that does not arise. Besides, we have old people who are in the villages who are not digitally compliant. They don't understand that if they have to take their 500,000 in the bank, or they have to make it 600 for whatever reason, they have to pay extra charge. Are we ripe for this? And then how would those who are not digitally compliant cope with information regarding this new policy?
I would say we are very much ripe for this kind of policy. If you look at just recently in 2023, the level of financial penetration in Nigeria is around 52%, but today in 2025, it has reached 64%, which means that there is, a trajectory, a positive trajectory in terms of the improvement in financial penetration by Nigerians. And there's a report in 2025 by NIPS, which also stated that we have over, or let's say around approximately 320 million active bank accounts, and perhaps there are dormant accounts as well. So it means we are getting there. So transactions seamlessly. So it's about sensitization, it's about embracing it and all of that. So we are very much ripe and we need to embrace it and accept it full time.
Okay, Chris, maybe you would like to add to the conversation. How would the policy affect vulnerable populations such as the poor and elderly who may not have access to digital payment system?
Okay, thank you. Once again, I think the context of the effect of them does not come into place because, like you defined, these are vulnerable groups which their mega incomes is not even as much as what the central bank is actually put there. So if you are able to demand for 100,000 naira every day or 500,000 naira every week, I don't think you are that poor. That's the honest truth about it. So the central bank was very careful when it did. I think the context, there's no nexus in comparisons between the policy and those who are poor, because in the first instance, if you demand in excess of what is there, you are definitely not in that particular class of those who are poor. What would you be doing with 100,000